Spoilers.
Affirmative.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
Affirmative.
Spoilers.
I pick a scenario, we drop her down into it, and we see how she does.
Hello. I am that mysterious adventurer in all of time and space, and these are my disposables.
Just promise you won't get me killed. I said this was a bad idea.
A 400-mile ship reversing away from the gravitational pull of a black hole.
So sorry, but you're the reason that they're coming.
What are they? A Mondasian Cyberman.
Give us a kiss.
Spoilers.
Affirmative.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
Affirmative.
Spoilers.
Welcome back. This is episode number 57, and as you just heard, spoilers abound, so we're going to get right into it. This is Discussing Who. Thank you for spending some time with us, and I'm Kyle Jones. Joining me, as always, Clarence Brown. Hey, Clarence.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Good to be back on for this heart-wrenching episode.
Yep, spoiler speculations, brain explosions, and all sorts of things. So, speaking of brains exploding, welcome back, Lee Shackleford. Hey, Lee.
I'm sorry, my brain exploded.
Darn it.
Yeah, I'm back.
Maybe you need an upgrade.
I was going to say, they just popped a mechanical counterpart on top of my head instead. So
there you go.
Yeah, so you can't feel the pain.
No,
exactly.
It's fine.
Could I get you some tea, perhaps?
With the good tea or the bad tea?
Does it really matter? Well, as you guys who are listening have probably already speculated from listening to us recently, and if this is your first show, welcome. We're glad to have you. And we will be talking all about the 11th episode of the 10th series of Doctor Who, and it is called World Enough and Time.
What a weird title.
Right. Weird, too. Yeah.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
It doesn't, but it's kind of appropriate.
Yeah. Well...
Let's get into it. I mean, there's.
I was going to say, shall we come back to that, or?
Well, I do want to mention one thing. This weekend, Clarence and I were at the Mississippi Comic-Con here in Jackson, Mississippi. And Clarence, you want to tell everybody your overall experience?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it a little bit on a later episode, but I'll just say I really enjoyed myself. It was nice meeting the Metro Whovians, as well as other groups, and just kind of getting together with the Grits crew and, doing a little coverage of the con. So it was a lot of fun. And, what are your thoughts, Cal?
Well, yes, you're right. It was fun. There was a lot of people there, but it was not too crowded. And on Sunday morning, Angie Meadows, who, if you were listening to last episode, have heard Angie on with us. She joined us for an 11 a.m. Sunday morning panel. We had a nice turnout. So if any of those who are listening to this episode are listening because you were in the panel, thank you for attending, and also thank you also for listening. But yeah, I had fun. It was I was tired on Monday morning, to be brutally honest, but I had fun. One thing I do want to...
normal con fallout.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
It is. Well, and usually a big con, a lot of people come home sick, too, just from being in the same room with so many people. So it sounds like you avoided the con crowd, at least.
Yeah, good point.
That's what they call it, con crowd.
Yeah,
it hadn't hit us yet anyway.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I want to just echo what you said, Cal, about just thanking anyone who is listening now because they heard of us at the actual panel, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said at the very end of the panel that I was, expecting at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, maybe a room full of 3 or 4, and we had about 25, 30. And I thought that was a great turnout. Everyone in the audience was participating back and forth with us, and, totally outstanding. And as always, Angie was fantastic. And she was also on the news. She didn't know she was on the news, but she was on the news and had been interviewed the day before by one of the local stations, the ABC station here in Jackson, WAPT. But go ahead.
I was just as well as supporting a good cause, right?
Yes. You were right on my same brainwave here. She, as part of the Metro Whovians and what they were doing, they had a kill the Dalek or shoot the Dalek game, and as part of that, it went to the Mississippi Diabetes Association. So
the proceeds did. The
proceeds, not the Dalek. No.
Okay, yeah.
But if the Dalek could exterminate,
Wrong message.
But if the Dalek could exterminate diabetes, I think that would be something worthy of a Dalek doing. So
well done. Well done.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do tonight before we got started on a serious note was to anybody listening, if you want to know more about, if you're in Mississippi and listening, or if you're not in Mississippi and listening, and you want to know about the Mississippi Diabetes Foundation, you can visit http://msdiabetes.org, or if you're outside of Mississippi, just visit diabetes.org. In the show notes, both of those will be linked in the show notes. So, if this is something you're looking for a good cause to donate to, I'm sure Angie would appreciate it. And, of course, the three of us would appreciate it. So check that out if you would like. And, it is for a good cause. So,
yes.
Guys, are we ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so let's start at
We were not ready for this.
Let's start at the very beginning.
Very good place to start.
Very good. And, the very beginning may be the very end and wibbly wobbly, but Lee, kind of set the stage of what we saw at the beginning.
Yeah, I've been thinking so much about what goes on the colony ship that I forgot that we have a pre-credits moment of an icy. We could be anywhere. This could be Hoth, I suppose.
Should we say cold open?
A cold open? I think it would be a very, very good name for that.
Or should I say one that might be worthy of a lead-in to maybe Ho, 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 Merry Christmas, perhaps? Maybe?
Yeah.
Possibly?
I don't know. But in any case, it was an extremely cold open with the ice and snow and the Doctor outside the TARDIS, brimming with what we've come to recognize as the traces of Artron energy bursting through his skin. And he's saying, no, 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 no. So we don't know what that exactly
means.
Yes.
And, I have to... And Lee, I'm actually doing something that I've heard you say that you've done quite often is listen or, watch with it in the background, on silent. And I'm doing that right now, and I'm noticing two things off the bat. Number one, the Doctor looks like some time has passed since the current episode that we're watching because his hair, whether this is a wig or not, is longer.
Yeah. That does also catch the eye. He's got a lot more hair in this pre-title sequence, yeah.
Do you think that's because just the actual time in our real time that has passed, or are we to presume had a lot of time in the Who universe has passed from between this and the rest of the episode?
Well, if you're trying to maintain the continuity, I mean, actors are usually instructed and carefully groomed to keep their hair looking the same, which is actually pretty tricky. It's one of the complex jobs of a crew on a TV show like that. So it wouldn't be happening just because they filmed that later.
Very intentional.
I think it's intentional
be a story
too.
Purpose for it. Yeah.
And the best example that I could prove on that is let's go back to the episode "The Time of the Doctor." Matt Smith was filming the Terminator movie at the time, and he was bald. And so we see a scene in there where they show him bald, but for the rest of the episode, that very doctorish Matt Smith looking 11th Doctor haircut was actually a wig.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and for the same reason, one of the most recent, one of the very last appearances on screen of Amy Pond, Karen Gillan was wearing a wig,
which was that exact same episode.
There you go.
Is that because of Guardians?
Yeah,
because of Guardians. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was Nebula at that time and was bald at the time. So
blue though. Yeah, I quite like the blue.
She was all Smurfy.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed, other than the long hair, was the fact that his clothes are a little bit tattered, and he looks pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
that in the American sense.
Yes. Stone cold, like, I am mad. The angry eyebrows was not there anymore. It was the angry face that I'm looking at right now. Even from the look of the mouth of, like, I could, mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like Lee said, he let out a episode 3 Darth Vader no. A little more graceful than Vader's, but yeah, he's pissed.
Yeah. These regeneration moments are usually met with some sadness. I guess it's, the only one I can think of that jumps to my mind about fighting it is the second Doctor.
But now I will say this: before we do not see now, his hands are glowing, his face is glowing as we see the no, but we do not see the actual regeneration. Yes, the energies are there, etc., but we don't see the explosion of energy that we've become accustomed to.
Yeah.
Any theories on where he might be?
Lee?
Besides Hoth?
Yeah. Scotland.
South Pole?
Right. I was thinking of places that we've been in Doctor Who before. South Pole.
South Pole?
Yeah.
South Pole?
I do sort of associate the Cybermen with ice, and I'm trying to think why.
South Pole?
Okay. Yeah.
South Pole. And there's a specific reason that I've gotten explain. The reason I've gotten stuck on that, and I had actually forgot that until I watched a clip that I actually shared with you, Clarence, of the 10th planet, which took place on the South Pole.
I didn't know that.
And
I think I did and had forgotten. Yeah.
Well, I had forgotten too until I saw that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So that's where they were.
And if the rumor for Christmas holds true, then that would make perfect sense for him to be on the South Pole, for him to come face to face with himself.
Well, that's right. If we are witnessing the genesis of the Cybermen, then that puts us in the right place in the timeline.
Right. Exactly.
So,
and it goes into explaining that where was Hartnell for, or where was the first Doctor in those one or two episodes when the Doctor, quote unquote, wasn't feeling well and was off screen for those two episodes. Then fills in the gap.
Interesting.
Now, have you guys read the TARDIS wiki entry for Genesis of the Cybermen?
No, tell us about it.
So apparently it was a story that was written, but was never actually scripted. Actually produced. It was for the 5th Doctor. And it kind of tells the story of how this planet, like Earth, got so far away from Earth. It's kind of interesting. So I suggest going to that wiki entry and reading it when you get some time.
Yeah. That's funny. I read their article today about World Enough in Time, but didn't think to look for Genesis of the Cybermen. Kind of fun.
Well, we've never had, other than what you're referring to, Clarence, which I didn't know about, but, we've had the famous Genesis of the Dalek story where we meet Davros, but we've never had this particular story of how the Cybermen came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do we think? All right. Well, let me ask this before we move on to the actual meat and bones of the actual story. Do we think that we will see the regeneration of the Doctor next week, or do we think it's still going to be Christmas, even though he's in the Christmas episode? Wibbly wobbly, whatever. Do we think we're going to see regeneration this Saturday?
No, I think it's going to end on a hella cliffhanger. We're going to have to wait until Christmas to find out what the end of this regeneration cycle takes him to.
Clarence, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's very much television for you. I don't see why they would give us that nugget this soon. But yeah, I think they're going to make us wait until the Christmas episode. What about you? What you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And I told you because Lee, you just got to know this was so hard trying to not talk about this episode when you pretty much were around each other for about 6 or 7 hours on Sunday, nonstop, and trying not to even though we did talk about it just a little, we pretty much stayed away. But that was so hard trying not to discuss
you didn't
this.
You didn't want to wear it out before you got on the air,
right? Exactly.
I see. Yeah. Well, I admire your restraint.
Well, Clarence was a little bit more restrained than I was, so I got to give him his due. I was like, almost couldn't contain myself.
Well, I think what was even worse when we got on the panel, the first thing we did was ask the question, who has seen the episode? And maybe one person saw it. So
I was like, well, there goes half of what we were talking about.
It happens.
It happens. But
Absolutely,
we did have a good panel. Yeah. So there you go. So Clarence, tell you've piqued my curiosity. Tell synopsis. What was this thing you read today? Can you tell just a little bit about it?
Yeah. So again, this was an unproduced story written by editor Jerry Davis. So the fifth Doctor and his companion, I guess this companion's name was Felicity, arrive on Mondos, a twin planet of Earth, orbiting on the opposite side of the sun. Through a series of events in a span of 50 years, a kind of a person on Mondos uses the Doctor's equipment, and I think it's the King, to turn his subjects into Cybermen. The King's plans are foiled, and the fleeing spaceships actually cause a massive concussion, which knocks the planet off its axis into deep space. So that's kind of the synopsis I have for it. But again, if you search for it on the TARDIS wiki, it's there. So it's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, there's a separate article about the creation of the Cybermen that sort of follows the different continuities as we have seen them on screen. And then this one that Clarence is talking about is called Genesis of the Cybermen. So that's double your pleasure.
And I'm wondering if what Clarence just read about was intended for the comics, or if it was intended for one of the audio, not the audio, or maybe the audio, maybe Big Finish, or it could have been intended for just a novelization, because I've never heard of Felicity.
Yeah, well, there's a footnote that says the Big Finish produced something similar called Spare Parts.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. So we see at the beginning, switching on into the actual story, we see that the TARDIS lands on this, spaceship, that it's received a distress call, and Missy is on a test run, and she's with thing one and the other one. So what do we think of Missy introducing herself as Doctor Who?
I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really amusing. We're far enough along into the fictional world, this universe, that we can now be playful about the fact that half the people in the world call him Doctor Who anyway, and that for a lot of the show's run, he's actually credited that way in the end titles. So he must be Doctor Who.
Right. But and when she walks on out and then says, she says, we're not we're not assistants. And she says, well, what does he call you? Companions, pets, snacks?
Snacks.
Yeah. I thought it was also funny when she said that's the name of the doctor, and then she said that's his real name. Look at the screens, and then immediately went on into talking about the axis of something being off. But I thought that was a good play on words to kind of the audience look at the screens. It's Doctor Who,
It's always said that,
yeah,
right up front.
Really cool.
And I'm sure you know that there was an episode of the first Doctor where the what's it called, the War Machine?
Yes,
the machine Wotan says, "Bring me Doctor Who."
And it actually writes out Doctor Who.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing really that hasn't happened more often in the run of the series where they've actually referred to him on in universe as Doctor Who. But,
well, usually it's been I think Jackie Tyler has said Doctor Who, and we know Clara has done that. So
but that's why it's funny when Bill said Doctor
What?
Exactly, it is a joke.
Yeah,
but we don't know his real name, do we? I know we had the big series with Matt Smith where that was kind of the name of the episode, and I don't think we ever found out what his real name was. Did we?
No. We established that River knows it.
Yeah, we do know that River knows it, and I saw this episode as A, Moffat is about to leave. B, when Moffat teased that we were going to release his name, and you'll see where I'm going with middle in just a minute. There was, if I remember correctly, in England or in the UK, there were people actually kind of protesting in the streets whenever it first got announced that they were going to reveal the Doctor's name, because the title of the episode was The Name of the Doctor.
Wow.
I saw this as kind of like, this is a middle finger saying, ha ha, I'm saying his name as a joke.
Yes. That's right.
So, we were talking about Missy coming out and kind of leading the charge on this mission. I so wish I didn't see the preview from at the end of the last episode, because it would have been so much more of a shock / surprise to actually tune into this episode and see her walk out and taking charge rather than knowing it a week in advance.
For that matter, I wish we'd have never even found out that the Master was returning.
That's the big thing to me, because it really completely sucked the air out of the last 2 minutes of the episode to me. That it was built. Had that been in a vacuum, I think the dramatic build of it would have been marvelous. But as soon as Razor said you'd never do something so self-destructive,
right?
When she threatened to disembowel him, I said, no, okay, that's the Master. All right, okay, doodly doo.
But Lee, I think it was you.
And then
one
he pulled
time.
his mask off. Yes, we know.
But Lee, I think it was you at one time that made the reference of, back in the day when you were watching Doctor Who, especially. I think it was when the caves of Androzani, when you don't know, you never know when the Doctor might regenerate, because you don't have the internet, and you don't have, even if there were fanzines and whatever, even if there were newspapers in Britain, we didn't have access to that over here. So you didn't know when the regeneration, so it was a shock. The fact that they were able to pull off Paul McGann coming back.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, Clarence, you remember showing that to me and being so like, oh, that's the 8th, and being totally taken aback by it.
Yeah. So what do we think about this 400-mile long, 100-mile wide ship? Do we know where it's coming from, where it's going? I think all we know is it's kind of stuck in its halfway in this black hole.
Yeah, we learn at the very end that it has come from Mondas, but did they do this on purpose? Is it parked around a black hole so that this time paradox thing will happen? Or is this some kind of a hideous mistake that's happened? I mean, I guess it has to be, doesn't it? Because the lower level cities are in complete collapse. So surely that wasn't their plan.
Yeah, which we kind of eventually have to talk about what I consider a huge plot hole. I guess they may explain it in the next episode. I'm sure they will, but I'll wait a little later till I get into it.
No, go ahead. If if it's on your mind, go for it.
But just the fact that they're at the bottom of the ship, time is passing. Unless it's pre-designed to be this way, like Lee just said, why would they not just go to the top of the ship? It completely makes no sense at all. Stumped by the fact that the henchmen can be sent up to go get a human if they arrive on the ship. So I really just didn't get that part. Though it played well for the story, it just really didn't make much sense to me. Which again, they might explain it in the next episode. So
or not. and my guess is not, because yeah. So far, I think I'm right about this. Every time that we've said they'll probably explain that next episode, they have not. So it does not trouble Stephen Moffat at this time. The massive inconsistency of that.
Yeah.
Because it sort of does work on story. It works on emotional story level. But if you think about it too much, think, well, wait a minute. Why don't they just go? Why doesn't everybody move to the top? Come on.
Well, you were talking about, where it's coming from and where it, we know they're from Mondas, and why are they on the ships? There is a website, and I will link to it in, our show notes and in the show itself. And the reason I got distracted because I'm actually looking at it. There is a map that this person has created, and it looks, just from the stories that I'm familiar with, it looks, very, very authentic, as in its representation of where the Cybermen come from. But it goes and shows how they splintered off and how they kind of explain some of the different looks of the, classic Cyberman looks. So I will post that in the in the show notes. But from my understanding, and Lee, help me out here, we know that Mondas was originally the sister planet of the Earth, and it was, like an upside down version of the Earth, and it got spun off and moving away from our solar system, and they were on their way back in 66 when the first Doctor encountered them. But in that time that they're away, didn't something happen to the planet to where it was becoming uninhabitable? Hence, the people evolved to the Cybermen and started trying to take over other worlds to make a home again?
That's the way I'm remembering it, is that they were our twin planet on the other side of the sun, which is why we never saw them, and that for some reason they were leaving our solar system. So yeah, they don't have they don't have access to the sun, which is would be very bad.
Right. And so, Clarence, that kind of explains why that clip you saw where Polly is saying, "Well, you're nothing like us," and that kind of explains as a commentary on that.
Right. Yeah. Because otherwise, why would you think that they'd be like us? Yeah. Because
correct.
It was a twin Earth. Yeah.
And on the ship again, I could have sworn I heard the blue guy say that they were leaving the shipyard to pick up the cargo. I could be wrong on that.
No, that's right. No, he said that the colonists haven't arrived yet. You're right. Yeah, which sort of reminded me of Smile. Interestingly, sort of bookending that idea. We've built a colony, and then the colonists will arrive later. So.
Interesting. So, this is the second blue person we've seen this year, which I thought that was just kind of interesting that they another repeating theme that's just kind of repeated, quote unquote, in there. Now, did anybody think when they were on what I will call the bridge, and you'll know why I say that it felt a little Star Trek-y there for a moment?
Oh, very much, yeah. They're sort of chairs facing more or less the same way, and control console, big screen, yeah.
Yes.
So, I loved Nardal's glee at just noticing that the guy just saying, "Oh, he's blue." You know,
Right.
it was nice that we finally got a positive response to somebody being blue there. And very quickly under his breath, he thinks he might go back to being blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a reminder because the number of times that Nardal says something about the fact that this is not the body that he was born with, we guess.
Yeah.
They've sort of been building up, I think. I didn't catch this until one of you pointed it out to me that the very first thing we see of him in this series this year is of a part falling off of him.
Mm-hmm. It was like not a screw, but a screw, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little metal
screw,
like a machine bolt comes off. Yeah,
right.
And when I saw that, I thought it was something that he had dropped out of his pocket or something that we would see later. But no, I think the implication is clear that it kind of came out of him. And talks about this not being his original head and so on. And, I don't know if we're ever going to get a definitive answer to this, but it's starting to look more and more like the doctor built him out of a kit. And the doctor very glibly makes the remark about the fact he's got a pair of eyes back there, when he's blinded. And he says, it's probably, time I replace my eyes anyway. And we can talk about class now, right?
Sure, go for it.
By this time, we saw that in that series, we saw that somebody lost a leg, and so the doctor just made him another one.
Yeah, wrong.
So, I'm wondering if I don't want to get my hopes up too much here, but Bill having a big honking hole in her is not irreparable from the doctor's point of view in the way we've established this doctor this year.
Yeah, that's true.
If he built Nardal and he put gave Rom another leg,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that seems too much to hope for.
Yeah, but is it in the same sense? None of them were yes, all I'm kind of backing myself into a corner here because literally all Nardal was at the end was a head. So. But we also assumed that Nardal was human. So in that assumption, the fact that his head came off could have just been the fact that he can change, spare body parts if he's mechanical.
And also can be like a passing the time thing. We don't know how much time really has passed between when he's traveling prior to hooking up with the doctor and when we first see him. So it could be a huge amount of time.
True.
But again, if he was blue and all this other amazing things apparently that he's done that we know nothing about, because it seems like everything that happened he has a comment about. He's either done it or experienced it. So I don't know.
Well, see, here's something we need to remember, or something that I have to remind myself of. When we first saw him on The Return of Dr. Mysterio, I assumed that after the doctor left the planet, he reassembled Nardal. But who's to say in the first year that he was there, he didn't reassemble Nardal with River, and he was there with them the whole 27 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's 24 years of linear time that Nardal was out there with whatever body he happened to have left at that moment. So we don't know. But I don't know. I for story purposes, just as a screenwriter and fan, I don't want the doctor to then fix Bill being a Cyberman. Yeah. I never really bought in the Star Trek fictional universe that you could take Locutus and sort of make him back into Captain Picard.
Yeah.
It seems like once you're Locutus, you're kind of, those parts weren't just stuck onto him. They, so I'm sure that what has been done in her conversion now is a lot more invasive than just having the radiator on her chest or whatever it was. So
the air conditioner.
Yeah, the air conditioner.
So how many times have we seen having that companion there in peril? And we're just conditioned to say, oh, he's going to pull him out at the last minute, or the person's going to drop his gun or whatever.
Yeah, 100,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but what makes it that much more painful, heart-wrenching, is we kind of get
saying
this
heart-wrenching.
Oh,
you're being a little heartless, Lee.
Yeah.
Literally,
you're being a little heartless.
Oh man,
ooh, that's even worse.
It was poking him in the chest when he hugged him.
Yeah.
But if you think about the format of this episode, when we see Missy step out of the TARDIS and we eventually get this kind of back and forth when Bill gets shot, of sort of like we got an extremist of this kind of going back and forth from present day into this time when the Doctor and Bill and Nordal kind of was having these conversations about, she didn't even want to go on this mission. And the Doctor, said, this is my friend. And she, what did Nordal say? You got the feels or the emotions or something?
Yeah, right.
And he convinces her that this is a good thing and you're doing it for the right reason. And, she adamantly makes the statement, don't let her get me killed, so after seeing that and then jumping back, it makes it even more, not heart-wrenching, painful to see what actually happens to her. So,
All right, y'all keep talking because I have I've just noticed. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. If y'all heard that, keep talking because I just saw something that caught my eye, and I am checking to see if I'm right about something.
Okay.
Because you're still watching the...
No, I'm watching actually the pilot for a second.
Okay.
I mean, so what do we think about the Doctor kind of convincing Bill to go on this mission? Do you think that was a wise? I mean, obviously it wasn't a wise decision, but
but it relates to the conversation from last week about letting her go off on her own.
That's true.
I mean,
but go ahead.
I don't know where I was going with that.
He's even seemingly more concerned about. Well, she's more concerned now than she was than running off in the forest by herself.
Well, and in Pyramid too. She deliberately sacrificed herself to save the Doctor.
Yeah.
So she's already looked, death in the eye
many times.
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah.
And speaking of looking death in the eye,
okay.
So here's what caught my attention. We have made a lot of, we commented on this when we were at Hulanta, especially Lee, when you were looking for those sew-on badges. What do they call them to put on jackets and stuff?
An embroidered patch.
Yes.
Yeah, I said
yes.
I wanted a WOW. Yeah.
Okay, so we have paid a lot of attention to the WOW patch on her jacket, and I had it on pause while I was looking, or while we were talking, of right when she was shot, and I noticed right by the WOW there is a skull with a pink bow on its head, and I was like, it's over there almost to her arm, and I was like, I've never really noticed that before, so that's why I was going back and looking at the pilot. So my point is, if this is the end of Bill, it's almost like it's been staring you in your face the whole time that she's got death. She's wearing a skull right by, close to her heart. And it's almost like, ha, 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 we've been telling you the whole time how she's going to die. I thought that was kind of interesting.
And not an accident. We know
right.
That's beautiful.
So, guys, when we saw these men come up the elevator shaft, humanoid beings with socks on their head, did you guys immediately think Cybermen?
I did, just because of the covering over their head.
Yes, me too.
And I've always thought that's one of the things why I always thought the Mondas Cybermen from the very beginning, why I always thought they were the creepiest, because that looks like a bandage. That looks like they are, severe burn victims.
Yeah.
And I always found that a lot more upsetting to think about than, the all metal cocoon of the Pete's World Cybermen.
Yes, agreed.
Did you guys? Well, I guess we can talk about it later. But the next on trailer, I was like, did something happen?
Right. Yeah, we're suddenly skipping ahead. Thousands of years of the evolution of the Cybermen. So, I see. The bookends here. It's the genesis of the Cybermen and the revelation of the Cybermen. So that's going to be cool.
Got you. So, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at these patients, as I guess we could call them, especially as Bill is being taken away. What did we think of when they're hitting that button? Pain, 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 pain. What did we think of that?
Well, that's something that I thought was one of the most what's the phrase I want? Deliciously brilliant pieces of script writing here. Just because I wonder if you guys read this the same way I did, because it's just a good bit of horror writing, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Is that when Matron came in and she turned the dial, and the guy stopped complaining, I thought it meant that we were turning up some kind of pain medicine. And then when Bill did it, it's clear it's just a volume control. She just shut the guy up. And it's like, oh my God, he's still in that same pain. He just can't say anything about it. Yeah.
Well, and
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I have to say, I love how we got these justifications for some of these different parts. I guess the excuse was the air down there was not good enough to sustain life because the engines. Mm-hmm. Mentioning that pain you just mentioned, bringing back up that pain you just mentioned, later we get the helmet piece that's introduced that is supposed to suppress the pain. So,
right.
We
can't stop the pain. We can just make you not care.
Yeah. Care? Why should we care?
Right.
And just little nods to how they eventually showed the Cyberman suit coming together. When the guy, I guess his name is Razor. I didn't know that from the show, but I heard you say it a minute ago.
Yeah, I didn't know that until seeing TARDIS Wiki, and I'm sure that's true. It's not in the closing credits.
No, but it is. If you put on closed captioning, they do refer to him as Mr. Razor.
Yeah. Same way I learned that the blue guy is George, Jorj. I love that. Yeah.
But the part when Razor is knocking the I guess one of the patients on the head to sound like the new helmet or the new hat or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. So just little nods like that, I thought really, no matter what you think of the justification for staying down there, I thought those nods were cool to show kind of the formation. Or the genesis of the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought that part of what was so brilliant about that was that I think one of the reasons why we haven't seen the Mondas Cybermen before is because they were kind of stupid looking. It was one of those things that sort of shows the speed with which the show was being put together in the early '60s, and sometimes how on the cheap they were. Yeah. It's an embarrassing design. Well, and then we saw Bill walk out wearing exactly that costume that I have snickered at before, and it wasn't funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all about context and framework. It's just we saw it come together piece by piece, and it's like, oh my, And Arnold was upset. He was like, "No, I think whoever that is could take us. I think we're in trouble." Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, okay, what was I fixing to say? Because we were talking, it was something about the Cybermen.
You were mentioning pain before.
The pain and the care. Lee, because I've shown this to Clarence, do you know why I even made the comment about them caring?
No.
There is a scene from the 10th Planet where Polly says, well, how can you do that? Don't you, something like, how can you do that? Don't you care? And the Cyberman responds saying, we care. Why should we care? We do not care. What? And, it's like whenever I heard that, watching that last night, I was like, wow, that's direct. It's like they even played back to that particular, piece.
It's a very, sounds like a very deliberate bookend. The word care always gives me a smile when Peter Capaldi's around, because I always love the joke from early in his time with Clara, when they're introducing themselves, and she introduces herself as being his carer, which is, we don't use that phrase over here, but I understand that you get that. She's basically saying she's his nurse, and he instantly says, "Yes, that's right. She's my carer. She cares, so I don't have to."
Exactly.
Yeah, and speaking of that scene, Cal, maybe we can drop it in the show notes. But
yes,
what surprises me most in that scene is it seems the only person in that room that's really scared is the doctor. Of course, we see the first guy kind of get obliterated, and then Polly is just all, indignant and all up in the Cyberman's face, and he has like hold her back. I'm like, what? You're mighty brave.
That's Polly. Yeah.
And, and your other comment was, well, something to the effect of, this was much more watchable than I thought.
Yeah, it was. I rather enjoyed that short clip, especially in context. I mentioned it on the panel, but I'll just say it again here for the rest of our listeners. I really wish I had the context that you guys have around some of these nods, tidbits that we get to the earlier episodes or the classic episodes. I mean, this is a perfect case here, but as well as the Alpha Centauri, how that actually goes into that classic episode, which, it meant nothing really to me other than the stuff you guys told me, but having that context and knowing how that works. And I even want to go back and watch these in order.
Yeah.
And that's just really cool. It's really cool.
Well, imagine what it's like for someone, and I'll use our friend Dave Cooper as an example, who actually, where Lee and I can go back and, watch it, years ago or whatever and get the context that you're talking about. But imagine Dave's perspective of seeing it first aired, and still watching it today and hearing these tidbits.
Yeah, he remembers Unearthly Child.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. And many others along the way, of course. But yeah. Something.
So, what did we think? And I mean, not necessarily about Mr. Razor from the end, but what did we think of him when we first saw him? Any thoughts?
Well, I think all of us Babylon 5 fans said, "Hey, it's Zathras."
See, I was thinking, actually, is he on Game of Thrones? Because there was something familiar about him, and it was, but I couldn't quite get it, and that was like, okay, you kind of look like a Game of Thrones person. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan. I've seen, most of the movies, but I've not rewatched them, so I wouldn't really recognize, somebody. So I was like, oh, well, you must have been on Game of Thrones or something.
No, you're remembering a continuing character from Babylon 5 who looked like that and spoke like that.
Ah, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, go ahead.
And who had a big revelation who turned out to be a lot more important than everybody thought he was. So yeah, it was another one of those, pull off the mask. Oh, it's you. So yeah, I'm like, that's interesting. This looks like a deliberate shout out to Babylon 5, but who knows? Who knows? Anyway,
do we know if that was actually the actor that was revealed at the end playing him the entire time?
Nobody is credited besides John Sim.
Yeah, and you go back and watch it now, and it's obvious because I'm watching him right now, and it's obvious that it's him.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, in any case, he did a wonderful job. Wonderful job.
It's just terrific. Yeah.
The writing of the simple white lies and jokes that he had was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
And I thought it was another cool thing about when they had the pictures of them on the TV and it looks like old school Doctor Who.
Yeah. The whole Superman gravity was great.
Yeah.
We got to see this unfold in slow motion on one end and kind of faster real time on the other. So I really loved that science fiction aspect of the black hole and how it actually went back and forth. I thought that was wonderful. How Bill was looking at the expressions on the doctor's face to try to figure out what was going on.
He's been raising that eyebrow for a week now.
Clarence,
Yeah,
you
really.
made a very good observation that you said on Sunday regarding not understanding, or Bill's not understanding the relationship at first that the doctor was developing with Missy, and you paralleled something. You remember that and want to kind of elaborate?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like when we flash to a little bit back when the doctor is trying to sell Bill and Nordal on the notion of helping Missy or giving her a chance, Bill, says she doesn't like her, she doesn't trust her, and she cannot understand why the doctor wants to help her. But yet, in this situation, post Machine Heart Bill befriends this character named Razor, and lo and behold, she's actually getting to befriend that same master that the doctor beloves. So it's a nice parallel for her to actually get that same friendship to a certain extent, even though she's ultimately betrayed in the end. But she does experience that same friendship from a different, obviously he's in disguise, and there's a large falsehood with that friendship, but she does befriend him. That's who she depends on down there, and is actually working for him. So yeah, I thought that was a cool little thing.
Yeah, I take it one step further. I mean, not, no way romantic or anything, but I mean, it looks like she actually, lived in the same house or apartment kind of unit thing that he was in.
Yeah. Well, he did say he sees her as his mom or his aunt.
Yeah.
So I thought was funny.
All right, so let's get on up to the inevitable ending, which is, we see Bill become a Cyberman. I mean, we pretty much kind of get the feeling when she gets shot that she's going to be, the Cyberman. I don't think that was, or be converted. Was anyone surprised by that?
I didn't really know for sure until the doctor they had on the table said, we don't have to do a full conversion, but it'll have to come later or something to that extent.
Yeah.
But yeah, you pretty much knew that her days were numbered.
Yep, I agree. Lee, your thoughts?
Yeah, I feared it, and I thought, let's just looking at the time frame at which the doctor is approaching her, I don't see how he's going to make it in time. So yeah. It seemed inevitable at that point.
So, speaking of inevitability, when did you guys get the thought, that's the master?
When Missy threatened to disembowel him, and he said, "You'd never do anything so self-destructive."
Clarence, what about you?
I didn't realize it to the very end as well. I had no clue. Well played.
Yeah.
Do we think that Missy has known all along, or was it a case of discovering it when she saw herself?
I like the way that was played. It was a conversation just between the two of them, so there's really no reason for her to dissemble. She doesn't have to put on a false face, and she looked astonished.
Right.
He unmasked as her past life.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than because she knows how the Blinovitch limitation effect works. She's not supposed to be able to cross lines with her own self. So, yeah.
So again, though, I'm asking this kind of as a very specific purpose, because All right, so so let me go back to that question again. Do we think she's known all along what the master has done? Because I think what I'm getting from you, Lee, is she was shocked, right?
Yeah. But of course, this is always the problem. And, the Day of the Doctor had to deal with this, in multiple different dimensions. Since this is her past life, why doesn't she just remember it?
Correct.
So, yeah.
When we see her, though, standing by Bill, and then the master joins on the other side, her demeanor has changed, and she's back as what I call traditional Missy. Would you guys agree?
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, you got to think, think of anything that you truly believe. If your past self came to you and told you that to be false, you would be inclined to believe what he says or what she says. You'd have to give that a large amount of consideration, and especially when you're trying to right a wrong. Say I'm a drug addict and I'm getting off drugs, and my past self, I can see all those good times he had.
Yeah. Shows up and says, "Don't bother. It was better before." Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she was truly on the path to reform. But like you said, if indeed she did know this was the outcome, we can just hand down say she is truly the master, because well played.
True. So let's jump in to a little thoughts on what might happen, because from the looks of those trailers, I'm going to assume that whatever machinations or plots or whatever, I think they lose a little control of what they're doing. Does anybody else get that same feeling?
The trailer was certainly a picture of all-out war. That's really about all we could see. And we're not really shown what's happening to Bill during all of this, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
So there's a big mystery for us for next week.
Right, and not only are we not shown what's happening to Bill, but Nordal is missing as well.
Nowhere to be found, yeah.
Nowhere to be found.
I didn't notice that, okay.
Well, he did I see a different trailer?
Oh, you may have.
Because I seems like I saw one where he's sitting down and he's shooting a gun.
There are two of them out there, because there was one with the Master and Missy side by side pointing their various devices.
Yeah,
he's got the laser screwdriver again.
Yeah,
but then in the end time, the next time trailer doesn't have that shot. So
I have this. Yeah, I mean, well, the trailer I saw, and it's probably a later one. It did look like those three were working together.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen to cause them to kind of team up, but it looks like that might be happening from and that's strictly on the trailer. That's nothing I read. So.
And Clarence, I think you're right, and based on what I've seen a still of what you just described, and I think you're right about the umbrella being sonic.
Okay.
The tip definitely lights up.
Okay. So there you go.
Yeah. I threw that out the panel. I was hoping I wasn't crazy.
No, I think you're right.
Nope. You're right on it.
And there is an audio clip. I think it was in the trailer that I heard where I'm assuming he's talking to Missy, but the master says something to the effect, "I would never work with the doctor."
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that he's talking to Missy. So let me ask you about, speaking of Missy, Michelle Gomez has said that she's leaving, and we know that she's not supposed to be back for the Christmas episode. So that means next episode is her last episode. How do we think that she's going to make her exit? Or do we even see that?
Well, I said last week that I thought that the master's going to kill her, but now I think she's going to sacrifice herself to save the doctor. Because that's what I'd do if I were writing this.
Okay.
That sounds awesome.
What about
the
John
master
Sims'
said
master?
Well,
silence has fallen.
Yeah. pragmatically, he's a very in-demand star right now. They may not. I don't think he's going to make a commitment to being on this series. So,
okay, let me pose this to you. What about if at the, we don't know how Missy, what happens to her per se, but what if they are obviously doing something with Cybermen of all iterations, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
So well, obviously the
first ones and the last ones, isn't it?
Maybe wherever they're at this moment, when the John Sims master may be left behind, may be hurt, may be left wherever he's at, and then regenerates into Missy, who then is with Cybermen, and then finds this piece of Time Lord technology, and then says, "Oh, welcome to heaven," kind of, and then that's Missy leading into, Series 8 when we first see her.
Yeah. So this is not her last story, but actually her first one.
Correct. As in the, and then we see John Sim, because, that's one of the things that people have always used as an argument that she's not the master is, well, we've not seen her, we've not seen the master regenerate into her. And you've got the perfect opportunity for the master to regenerate into her.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked about this. This may be our first 3 regeneration episode, possibly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
So,
how about this? How about this for a theory? The Doctor is wounded in this battle with the Cybermen, and he realizes that he's got his regeneration energy going. He could use it to restore Bill.
Yeah.
Because we've seen them pass regeneration energy on like that before. River Song did it, right? And he is going for her, and then somehow they get separated, and that's why no.
But that's a good one. But can that work on an ordinary human? Because when he did that to River, she was semi-ish Time Lord-ish.
That's true. Maybe you can only pass it between Time Lords.
Perhaps.
Who knows?
If
you can, yeah, that's right. And we know that you can grow a whole 10.5 Doctor out of the Doctor's hand.
And Donna Noble.
And that's true. You can make her into the Doctor as well. Wee.
All right. So, do we want to give our ratings on what we would say is this particular episode? Clarence.
Yeah, well, I have one quick question, and then we can do that. The number at the bottom of the ship, they kept panning the camera up to the ceiling, and the number was 1056. Does that have any significance to you guys?
Yeah, I kept trying to read it as 1066, the year of the Norman Conquest, but it's not. It's 1056. It definitely is. Yeah, I don't know if that's random or if that's we're supposed to say, 1056.
No, I didn't go 1056.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Only reason I asked is they kept panning up to it. It at least 3 times.
Yeah, and it's a cool effect, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, in the same vein, do you guys really not know why the episode is called World Enough in Time?
No, I don't.
Not I.
It's the advantages of my liberal arts degree, I suppose. That's the opening line of To His Coy Mistress, the poem by the 17th century poet Andrew Marvell. And now that I think about it, having seen the episode, that should have told us everything, because it is a beautiful love poem that I know the first 4 lines. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness lady were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. It's 3 long stanzas, and it's about if if only time wasn't running away from us, we could spend eternity adoring each other. I could spend 30,000 years just admiring each part of you. And it ends with, and I would save your heart for last.
Oh, and that ties right in. It's like you were just saying something nice.
That's right. But so the poem could be seen as being a big love letter from the Doctor to Bill, but there's no time.
Good. So, Mr. Brown, ratings.
Oh man, I think it's not a big thing to say. We all love this episode. I know I loved it. Hands down, my favorite of the series, and maybe my favorite of Capaldi's run. The acting was excellent. The story was excellent. The moment when Bill says, "Don't lay a finger on me," and just the emotion, and as well as the doctors when he discovers that it's Bill, and he's pleading at first he's pleading to tell me where Bill is, and man, just those moments were some of the greatest of Capaldi's run. And man, I loved it. I get a 4.8, man. I loved it. Loved it.
All right, Mr. Shackleford.
Yeah, I'm going to round it up to a solid 5. I don't understand why people don't go up to the top floor, as Clarence said, but it honestly hasn't bothered me. It's I accept that there's a reason. So that would be the only quibble I could come up with. But and I did feel like I was sort of marking time in those last moments where the big revelation that this is the master was coming. But that's because it had been spoiled for me. But pretending that it hadn't. Yeah, it's perfect. It's just an amazing hour of television.
Yeah. So you guys know, and anybody listening has heard me talk and know I like event episodes. I really like event episodes. I like episodes where Lee can come back, 2 years from now and say, now what was it again that Missy said when such and such and such and such, and I can go, oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is one of those episodes where I can go, oh, blah, 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 blah. So since
only with actual words.
Yes. So since I can blah, 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 that translates into actual words. And those words are, I give it a 5, without a doubt. Perfect. Yeah. Loved it. Just can't wait. I just wish this wasn't our finale this week.
Yeah, man. Season flew by, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It went by.
Didn't we just do the pilot? Didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. So next thing you know, we'll be talking about, it's almost time for Christmas.
Yeah.
So guys, speaking of spoilers, I just complained about trailers, but has any word gotten out, or do you even want to talk about who the next Doctor might be? I found it funny when Bill and the Doctor was sitting on the bench. On the bench, excuse me. Seems like he made it a point to say something about, I don't know if the master was a girl or a guy,
or if I was.
Yeah. I found it really weird, and I was wondering were they trying to hint at something.
I had the same thought and loved that conversation. Just loved it.
Yeah.
But you're still called Time Lords. Shut up.
Yeah. Shut up.
And she laughs.
I don't know who it's going to be until they say, breaking news from the BBC, the new Doctor is fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I am, as much as I love spoilers and figuring out stuff, if they show who he or she is on Saturday, I don't want to know, because I read a theory of what might happen to Missy, and it's not something that I'm not even going to mention it, because it's something I don't want to. I'll mention it to you after we finish recording, because it's something that I would maybe not be a fan of. But having said that, I if they want to announce who the Doctor is, because I know with this day and age of technology, they're going to have to announce before it's on the air. But I just don't know. I mean, What do you guys think?
No, I do not want to know. I want to know when the Artron energy effect has cleared away from his face. That's what I want to know. You know.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Nah, I'll agree with that.
That's how we got David Tennant, and I remember that. I thought that's how you do that.
Yes. All right. So interesting you said that. So, Lee, would you like to let everybody know how they could get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is to push the button that says contact on one of my many websites, but specifically the one relativitypodcast.com, the official home of the Relativity sci-fi serial, which is recording episodes 11 through 20 this Saturday.
Woohoo! Yay!
Yay!
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Well, Mr. Brown, you have another project that you're working on other than Discussing Who. So where could they also find you?
Yeah, that's going to be at the Tech Petition podcast, which is techpetition.com. We did some E3 coverage last week, and we should have something else coming out pretty soon. But also, I want to direct you guys to the Discussing Who YouTube channel. And you can get to it by going to youtube.discussingwho.com. And we have a pretty interesting interview with the Spidey team that we met at the Comic-Con. So that was real fun. Those guys are cool. So you definitely should get over there and check it out and go like their Facebook page. Those guys are awesome.
Very
awesome
cool
is
guys.
the word.
So Lee, have you seen it?
Yeah. And you're right. Well, I mean, I saw the picture that you had taken. I said, "Ooh, I hope they got an interview with them." Yeah, and you did.
And we did. And we've actually got an interview with several other groups, and we'll mention them. We will save that till the to wrap up to the Mississippi Comic-Con wrap up episode. But in the meantime, for everyone listening to us, thank you for spending your time. Check us out on our website, and you can find us at discussingwho.com. So thank you for listening, and with that, we will see you next time.
Out of this one, are we?
Cybermen are coming. Who I am is where I stand, it's where I fall.
I will never stand with the Doctor!
Without hope, without witness, without reward, stand with me. It's all I've ever wanted.
Doctor Who, the series finale on BBC One.
Discussing Who is brought to you by Audible. You've probably heard of Audible, but just in case, they are the world's leading provider of audiobooks. They have more than 180,000 titles. Let me say that again. 180,000 titles to choose from. Imagine a genre, they've got an audiobook. And these files play on smartphones, Kindles, tablets, in fact, over 500 different devices. Now, for fans of Discussing Who, Audible is offering a free download when you start a new Audible subscription. And you can choose anything at all from that vast library. But we know you want to get one of their absolutely fantastic Doctor Who titles, which include New Adventures of the Doctor, but also Torchwood and River Song. And they're performed for you by actors you know and love. Wonderful voices: Tom Baker, Alex Kingston, David Tennant. The list goes on and on. So try it out for 30 days. And if at the end of the month you decide Audible is not for you, you still get to keep that Doctor Who book you downloaded. So look at it this way. Free Doctor Who book. So here's how you get started. Point your favorite web browser to audibletrial.com/discussingwho. That's Audible Trial, all one word, audibletrial.com/discussingwho, also one word. And that's how you get your free book. What could be better than that? You've been listening to the Discussing Who podcast. Discussing Who is made by fans for fans. No copyright infringement is intended. Show us you're fans of the show by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter. You can find us on the web at www.discussingwho.com. Want more Discussing Who? Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Player FM, the Doctor Who Podshock Alliance, and more. Send us your feedback to discussingwho@gmail.com, or if you'd like, simply record a voice message and send that to us via your smartphone, tablet, or computer. We want to hear from you.